Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Vanessa Dunn, Guyton, and I am the founder and executive director of Hush No More. Hush No More supports survivors when they're ready to come forward to share their story, to find resources, or just to have somebody to listen to them. We also provide free training in our community, free counseling on what we call the hush topics: sexual assault, domestic violence, sex trafficking, incest, child sexual abuse. All of those topics that communities and families have a hard time discussing, we talk about it right here on Hush No More Champion. So thank you for joining us once again. We are going to have a great show for you. This is Pride Month, and so we're going to talk about the LGBTQIA plus community and how you can actually heal from the trauma that you're going through and how to get to the next level and just to raise some awareness this month. So my guest is attorney Kelly Durden Posey. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, this is my pleasure.
I am excited because it's Pride Month and I want to be able to support those who are not always supported, those who are discriminated against quite often, and just to be able to show some love and some kindness. And so that is the idea behind the show tonight, to just be inclusive and to go against the norm. You know, sometimes organizations do not want to talk about it and are not inclusive, and that is the idea for tonight. So tell us a little bit about you.
As you mentioned, I'm an attorney, but I'm also the founder and owner of Inspired Inclusivity Consulting. It's a diversity, equity, and inclusion firm where I teach people who feel like they want to be inclusive of all communities. I teach them how to make their words match what's in their heart. My background is in doing public interest attorney work. I've kind of done a little bit of everything to help people that need it the most. But I'm most proud of my work that I've done with victims of domestic violence. I worked at Legal Aid of North Carolina and Legal Services in Southern Piedmont for years, primarily working with victims of violence. And I got to meet a lot of wonderful people and learn a lot about survivors and resources. And any chance I get, I like to share that.
I love it. A lot of times our experiences take us on a path that we don't expect us to end up in. You know, and most attorneys don't have the experience that you have working with victims. And before I met you, I only met one other attorney that actually represented spouses in domestic violence cases and actually gave them information and resources. So I think it's important to even know that you exist, because a lot of families don't even know that there are lawyers out there that can give them the great resources and be by their side to make very difficult decisions.
All right, listen, and free lawyers too. That was the best thing about doing that work, is that I didn't have to worry about my clients paying me. They could go through whatever they were going through and get this service for free. Legal Aid of North Carolina still does that. I'm no longer with Legal Aid, but they do that. They even have attorney volunteers all throughout the state. Those dedicated volunteers are trained by those of us who did it every day. And we're just energized around really helping people, advocating for them and what they feel they need to make it to the next phase of what's going on in their life.
Love it. So how did you, because this is Pride Month, how did you start working with the different communities, regardless of their gender identity, their sexual orientation, regardless of all of that? How did you become so immersed in this community?
Well, I'll tell you, when I got out of law school, the last thing I wanted to do was be in somebody's courtroom, because I'm just not the type of person that wants to be very adversarial and fight. And I wasn't that person, but there was a need. I mean, there was the greatest need, and I didn't want to kind of babysit people and have them pay me hourly. Like, I just didn't. I wasn't in the mood for that, but the need was there. And so I met some great attorneys and I worked with them, trained with them so that I could understand, how to fill that need. And I felt like, well, primarily we're serving women of all different income levels. But I did notice there was a gap around the LGBTQ community. And so for me, I started practicing in a really rural part of North Carolina, in northeastern North Carolina, a place where nobody's ever really heard of. But I was kind of closeted. Not that it was a secret so much, but no one talked about it, and no one knew that, I was any different, that I was not attracted to men. And so it was kind of a taboo, a very quiet thing. But there were still people who came forward who needed help and protection. And so noticing that there wasn't anything geared towards serving the LGBTQ community, when I finished with that and I had the opportunity to work with a great organization called the Freedom Center for Social Justice, we started the region's first LGBTQ law center, where we literally just focused on anything and everything that people who are part of the LGBTQ community needed. And of course, that had to include some help with safety and domestic violence, whether it was a partner or a spouse or a family member. There were just so many areas where people weren't getting service, and we were privileged to be able to assist them. So I just happened to have this unique body of knowledge around a group that people just aren't working with, or they don't realize they're working with. We have unique challenges, and I am uniquely situated to know about them and know how that shows up. So,
what are some of those challenges for individuals who do not know or understand? What are some challenges that someone that identifies as LGBTQ in that community face as it relates to like domestic violence or sexual assault? What are some challenges?
Well, there are a lot of challenges around just being open about your relationship. So if no one realizes that you even are involved with someone of the same sex, it might be really difficult for them to realize that there's something going on, or realize that there's something that you might need help with. If you've not felt that you could be open and honest with your coworkers about just your identity in general, you certainly don't feel comfortable talking to them about your safety, And so just a culture that's not permitting people to come forward with their whole self, it automatically silences any issues you might be having, and it shows up in your work. You really can't, you've got all that on your mind. Just imagine if you never mentioned who you were in a relationship with or anything that was going on at the house. It weighs heavily on you, so it can really detract from your work, lower your productivity, cause you to end up having more mental health breakdowns, physical adaptations of that. It covers your whole life, So just on the most basic level, if you don't feel comfortable coming out, that can be a big issue, But then at the time when I started practicing this type of law, there weren't as many protections for same-sex couples. Now, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but I'll say marriage was not legal for same-sex couples back then. Goodness, it was a while ago. So I've been practicing law since 2006. And back then it was just absolutely not a thing. It wasn't legal pretty much anywhere. There were, domestic partnerships and things of that nature. And North Carolina tried to keep up a little bit. We said as a part of the 50B statute, which is where we find the protections for victims of domestic violence, there were some provisions for if you're living with someone, if you're in a familial relationship with them, or if you were in a dating relationship, or if you were married. But the protection just feels different if it's a same-sex couple. There's just a lot of assumptions that people already feel when you walk in the room, and it's different in every county, and the level of visibility to cases like this is different in every county. So when I tell you, it takes courage to come forward. It takes courage for anyone to come forward, and then to have to reveal something so basic as your actual sexual orientation just by virtue of coming forward to get help. It's a lot.
Got it. So as I was listening to you, I was thinking about the challenge of just sharing, period, and how people are always shocked when you're in a relationship. It's a domestic violence relationship, right? And so they're always surprised, and there's always that additional conversation. So in this case, I can see where there are a lot more conversations, and especially if people don't believe that you should be in the relationship that you're in the first place, right? They definitely have some extra things to say. So coming forward, it could be very difficult if you don't have a support system around you as well. Now, I think that's important for people to understand that they still need your help. They still need your support. They still need your listening ear, even more now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just that the comfort level with people around you and feeling like, well, if I'm already being judged for who I love, just the gender of person that I love, and then I've chosen someone who treats me this way, you feel like you're going to be judged and then judged again, and it makes it just difficult to make that step and decide to come forward.
I think that's very difficult. And I've met women, not men. I haven't met any men. Not to say that they have. That's not the case. But I've met women that are in real difficult relationships who are with other women, and they stay sometimes because they don't want that relationship to fail. Like they've defended the relationship so much that it's like, I can't let this fail. I can't let my family know that this relationship was not right, regardless. And so they end up staying out of wanting to really make it work. Did you see that with the work that you were doing?
I did. I saw a number of reasons people stayed, but just that, well, we've come so far and we had to fight the world. Whatever we have going on, we have to keep it to ourselves. That secrecy so that you have some level of privacy. And then I think there's the added complication of if you're not out at work and then you have to maybe take off work to have, a domestic violence protective order hearing that, and then it's public, anybody who happens to be at the courthouse and happens to, see you, it's very public, and so they do have some protections in place to make it so that not just anybody is in that courtroom. And thankfully, Mecklenburg County has, one courtroom that is just for that. In smaller counties, just in a regular criminal courtroom, it's all kind of things going on around you, and you're dealing with this civil matter in a criminal court, and it's kind of frustrating. But along with just that visibility piece, or just wanting to hold as tightly as you can to something that you work so hard for, there's an added layer of control where at least one partner is not out, because as we know, domestic violence is really just about control and power. That added layer of knowing something about this person that they don't want other people to know, they don't want to be out at work. You've got that I can always call and tell, I'm going to get you fired from your job. It's just another layer of control. So there just can be so many reasons, that people stay. It just adds another one.
And it adds on. Yeah. And I want people to understand that it's not necessarily because of their sexual orientation either. This happens, but it's more acceptable. Like they'll say, oh, well, you weren't supposed to be in that relationship anyway. God did not agree with the relationship anyway, so it'd be okay. The things that people say to you, it's not always helpful in a situation.
No. You got that
so
right.
I want people to understand you have to be careful what you say to people, because one, you can force them not to leave based on what you're saying. It could make them stay in a relationship longer. Or they could just cut you off and not want to have nothing else to do with you. I've seen people cut their families off after coming out of a domestic violence relationship. Like there's so much negative energy that can come out of it if you're not gentle and kind to people when they're going through any type of trauma. Any type of trauma. Nobody asks to be in a domestic violence relationship. Nobody asks to be sexually assaulted. Like you don't ask for that,
Right.
So I think it's important to be supportive of people when they do come forward and say that. For you, we were talking about some myths that people think about this community. What are some myths that we can dispel as it relates to trauma, as it relates to the things that we work on in our community?
Well, just kind of along the same lines as what we were just talking about, um, there is a myth that when it's two women who are in some kind of physical altercation, or if it's two men, that it's just a regular fight. Like, oh, well, there is a charge called assault on a female. And if a male perpetrates that charge, then it's a different crime than just assault. And so it's almost built into the court system, into the law, that it's different when it's different genders. But where there's that power and control issue, where there's that relationship and one person is showing dominance, it's still domestic violence. So the myth that, oh, well, if it's just two women, it's just a girl fight, or it's just two men, it's just two men just fighting, just duking it out. That's just not true. That dating relationship, or that marriage or domestic partnership, however it comes together, that just creates that different dynamic, and that control takes it to a different level and makes it more volatile and more dangerous. So it's important to recognize that it's not just a fight between two people. It is a power issue, and it needs to be addressed from outside the relationship. So,
I think that's important that people understand that, and that there's that mental element that is still there, that
mhm,
emotional element that is still there, and it's if it's not worse. So
right.
I'm really glad that you did the work that you do the work that you do, and just supporting from this aspect. Another myth was that you deserve it because like in the eyes of God, you're frowned upon. People use religion
Right.
sometimes against individuals.
Right.
What have you heard, or what is your opinion or say in that matter?
Mm.
Tough one.
Well, and I'll tell you, I've always belonged to churches where the message is that God is love, and love is for everyone, and love shouldn't hurt. Love shouldn't be intentional about hurting. Sometimes it aches, yes, but love should not be the type of thing that causes someone to take advantage of or hurt you. And so I can reconcile that with my religion and my spirituality very easily, but I know that not everybody can do that. And so, to the extent that the way that you were raised, especially here in the South, conflicts in the eyes of the people around you with your relationship now, it makes it very difficult to not still have that nagging feeling that maybe they're right. And maybe this is what happens when you go against what God wanted for you, you know. Um, I also am a firm believer that God leads you where you're supposed to go, and you make the decisions when you get there with the best that you know how to make it, and you're led to certain things along the way. So you might be led to a friend who happens to know something about resources. You might be led to a friend who happens to know somebody who's just a great listener, or a therapist, or a counselor. But it's important to pay attention to those cues. If you don't, you can find yourself in a worse situation. But religion can be used to control somebody, but it can also be used to liberate somebody. So I say go that direction.
Not to condemn somebody, or not to not love on them. I am real big on showing love and kindness and accepting people for who they are. It doesn't mean that you agree with
Mhm.
what they're doing. You don't have to. I have a problem with people when they are not loving and kind to somebody, regardless of the lifestyle that they live, right?
Mhm.
And love one another. And so I always go back to that. And a lot of times I'm going back and forth. My mom's a minister. I grew up in the church too. But I also do believe that God loves us all.
Mhm.
And then people have personal decisions and personal relationships with God. So I just want to get that out there. That's my stance on it, because I am very inclusive, and I just believe in loving everybody and giving everyone a safe space. Here in
Mhm.
our state, men, young boys who are gay, transgender, our young men, they're being targeted. They get raped, they be in very bad relationships. And I just get upset when I realize that somebody was targeted from a hate crime. Because essentially
Mhm.
that's what it is. And it bothers me so much that individuals have to go through that. So that's my spiel tonight on my
Mhm.
stance. I think it's important for people to understand that. We were talking about some other myths, and one of them was that women who identify as lesbian, right, have maybe been hurt by a man or have been raped or been in a domestic violence relationship. What do you think about that myth?
Well, I think it is a thing that even people in the community sometimes think, and it's unfortunate. I believe it is a myth, that whatever happened to someone in the past is not necessarily the reason why they might find or seek out certain relationships. But that's, it happens. So I guess for me personally, um, I did have some, I'll say, inappropriateness when I was young that made me kind of look at things a little differently, and it made me kind of grow up a little sooner than I wanted to. But if anything, I would say that almost made me think I was wrong for feeling the attraction I already felt to women. Because that was a male person, it made me think, oh, well, whatever I was thinking already was wrong. This person, who was just, not too many years older than me, and I was very young, made me think, oh, well, I'm supposed to be with men. And almost tried to make me think that I was straight, and I really wasn't. And so I tried to force myself into situations with men, and I guess that's probably the opposite way that most people would think. But no matter what type of trauma you might go through when you're younger, it doesn't technically affect who you would innately be attracted to, and it certainly doesn't affect what your gender identity is. And sexual orientation and gender identity, so very different, not technically related, but all, under the umbrella of LGBTQ. So I think it's important to mention that. But that is a myth. Everyone is not damaged. Everyone is not, been hurt somewhere. You really might just be oriented towards a certain person, and it doesn't have anything to do with pain or trauma. So glad that you brought that up. That myth. Ooh, let's get rid of that one.
Um, you spoke of gender identity and sexual orientation. Can you give an explanation of both for those that are not familiar or who gets it? Because oftentimes it's confused and mixed up. So can you explain that to everyone that's listening?
I'm gonna give you the easiest breakdown that I know. Okay, sexual orientation is who you love. Gender identity is who you are, right? And gender expression is how you show who you are. So if I say that I identify as a woman, and the sex that I was assigned at birth is female, it means the doctor looked at me and said, "Yep, that's a female. I'm going to go ahead and mark female on her birth certificate." If how I feel matches up with that, then I'm considered cisgender, right? That means it's aligned. If those two things are different, then I would be considered transgender, meaning if a doctor looked at literally just my body parts when I was born and said, "Girl," but as I grew, I felt like I was male and I had, all the feelings of someone who identifies as male, that person is considered transgender, meaning what they saw doesn't match with who you are. Now, whatever that identity is, whoever you love is your sexual orientation. So if I say that I'm female and I love and I'm attracted to women, I'm considered, lesbian, perhaps. But if I am female, no matter whether that's a trans woman or a cisgender woman, and I'm attracted to men, considered heterosexual, straight, for all intents and purposes. And if I don't limit any of that, if I don't limit myself to one gender or just one way of viewing things, I might consider myself to be pansexual or queer. And so, I mean, there are so many different words to encompass who you are and who you're romantically attracted to, or even asexual or aromantic, not feeling a sexual attraction to anyone or a romantic attraction to anyone. So there are just so many words that help us kind of contextualize who we are and how we feel about people around us. I'm a bibliophile. I love words. I love how they can help us give meaning to things. So, not that the label is always the way to go, but to the extent that it helps people put into context how they feel, words can really be so liberating.
Yeah. I like that. Words on how I feel, how I identify, how I look at myself in my own life and my relationships. I like that. I
Mm-hmm.
used to laugh because our kids had told their dad that he was a metrosexual. And he got so mad, right?
Oh, goodness.
So
I
mad.
remember that word.
Well,
That
the
was a
kids
thing
were
for a
just,
while.
yeah, well, the kids were just laughing. They thought it was hilarious. And then it was like, Dad, it just means that you have feminine qualities. Like he loves to dress, he loves pedicures and manicures, And so they was just talking to him. But sometimes there's a confusion, and what we don't know and what we don't understand. And so I think it's important to try to learn about others, and just to
Mhm.
be understanding of our differences. Me and my sister always laugh that we're sapiosexuals.
Oh, yes. Me too.
And so
Absolutely.
I love a man that is smart. Oh, if he's intelligent, we can have a great conversation. I am so looks doesn't matter. It's your intelligence, But if you say something dumb, I'm just like, that's so stupid. Like, look at what you look like. I
But
can't have
yes,
a
there's people
conversation
don't
with you.
know.
And so
Sapiosexuality is amazing, right? Who doesn't want to be
I do
attracted to somebody
believe
that's
that
intelligent?
there's different words that can just really capture the essence of who we are, and it's not always negative. It's
Mhm,
not a negative spin that we can put on it, and so I think that's important.
mhm. See, words, I'm telling you, they're the thing. They just they make everything make sense. And I get the question all the time. How am I supposed to keep up with all these words? I don't even know. They got a new name for everything all the time. And I say, you don't have to keep up with every term. But if you heard something that helped you understand that you're not the only person that feels a certain way, or it helped you identify with other people who might fall into that category, wouldn't that feel great? Wouldn't it be wonderful? But even when you talk about that metrosexual, I remember, and it's a thing now we do in high school. Back in the day, it's like, oh yeah, I know, I could tell this person is gay or this person is that, and you know that doesn't end when we leave high school. People always feel like they know, and unfortunately, what we call it now is bias. Unconscious bias. Those things about culture that you decide are who somebody is just because of what you believe they should be. I tell you, it can be so limiting. It can really cause you to miss out on the best of people by just prejudging and then leaving it there. I mean, we all have different biases. We all have that. But if you can't overcome it, you can't really see the potential in people. And that's kind of what I've based my whole practice on in my business, is just to make sure that people, yes, you're going to get that bias. You're going to have that first feeling. You might not know what to say, but here's how to overcome that so that you can be inclusive and welcoming and really understand and get to know people.
I think that you have to keep that door open
Mm.
because God sends like the most amazing people, and sometimes we push people away that really should be in our life and really should be in our circle. And I'm not. I'm so inclusive of all, and I think it's important. When I'm speaking to victim advocates, I am adamant about you have to be able to help all people, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their age. You're supposed to be able to help. Our organizations are supposed to be open to all, anybody that needs us. And I think that's important for people to feel welcome when they're going through some stuff, they're able to go and reach out and get the right resources. And the resources might look a little bit different. Whether they have somebody that just want to be there for them and support them through very difficult times. Very difficult times. I do like that the laws are changing to include intimate partner violence. And so that's very inclusive and allowing us to navigate the laws to protect people, regardless if they're married or not, right? Regardless of if their marriage is accepted by the state, So I think it's important that we're very intentional on accepting all people to be able to service.
Yeah, and so now that we do have marriage equality, I think the next level of advocacy is around bias, right? Because if I walk into a room, and I meet people and they see the ring, they see that, okay, she's probably married. The first thing they want to hear is about my husband. Oh, I don't have a husband. Well, why you got that ring on? Because I'm married. Okay, but you said you didn't have a husband. Okay, I don't. This is getting kind of circular. You see, and it's the person's bias that's causing them to ask these limiting questions, And as advocates, if we do that, we're inadvertently telling people you're not welcome here. We're saying, oh, yes, we want to be inclusive of everybody. Everybody can come in. But if I can come in, but I can't be supported appropriately because your own prejudgments about who I'm going to be limit you to knowing what I might need, is going to make it really difficult. And so say, for instance, here in Mecklenburg County, in the domestic violence courtroom, back when I was practicing in there, women on one side, men on the other side. Very black and white rule, because they assumed that anybody who was going to be in that courtroom was, a male or a female, and in a, domestic violence situation with someone of the opposite sex. But what do you do when you have a woman who comes in and her abuser is also a female? She's going to sit right by her and can be so triggering. And the court, not only are they not going to notice something like that if they're not aware, they're also going to force them to sit on the same side and will block them if they try to sit on opposite sides, even if someone was trying to do right. So saying that you want to be inclusive and saying that you have an open space is really not enough. There are extra steps that you have to take to make yourself educated about, what gaps there are and how this might look for someone who is, a same gender loving person. Otherwise you're kind of neglecting your advocacy. So I thought it was just so important to make sure that even on the most basic pieces of what you think when you meet somebody, you gotta let that go. You gotta make sure that you ask the right questions in an open way so that people have space to tell you all about themselves. They won't tell you, but you have to ask the right questions to get it.
I like that. You mentioned marriage equality. Do you really believe that there's marriage equality, even though the law is passed?
Okay.
I don't. I just don't. And I'm just wondering, what do you think?
Well, okay. So from a legal perspective, from 100% legal perspective, I will say yes, in that the same rules to obtain a marriage and the same rules to dissolve a marriage exist. So on paper, yes. In reality, there is no way to avoid the bias that people feel when they have to interact with a same-sex couple versus an opposite sex couple. And depending on the context, it can really cause some just even unintentional negative treatment. It's really difficult to avoid. And then looking at the people involved, there are a lot of assumptions there. So even if you look at a same-sex couple and one person is wearing more masculine clothing and the other person is wearing more feminine clothing, the assumption is that the person in the masculine clothing is the abuser. That is not always true. You know, people are people. You have to pay attention to the dynamic to really understand what's going on. So judges are not immune to that. You know, people who have to interact with couples are not immune to that. And it's hard for them to remember, hey, what you see is not always what's really going on. You know, you have to ask the right questions. And what you see and how you judge that is based on your own past interactions. It's literally based on your experiences. Might just be that one gay friend you had who told you all the things, and you think they were the expert when really they were just telling you about their own experiences. You know, so I love that I have intentionally interacted with people of all different genders, sexual orientation, and gender expression so that I can enthusiastically say, here's why you're wrong and here's a better way to go about it. You know, you really genuinely might have every good intention, but if your mouth is not matching up with what's going on in your mind or your heart, you're missing the mark and it's only hurting the people you're trying to help.
I agree. It's harmful.
Mhm.
I speak up. I don't have a problem saying I don't think that there's marriage equality. That is a lot of acceptance. I see it. I hear it. I've heard people that won't say anything about their abuse because they don't want the other assumptions are coming towards them as well, to be mistreated. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that it stops. I want to know from you, what can a person, a family member say to someone who is in a same sex relationship and is being abused? How does that conversation go?
Mm. So, the most important thing that a family member can do or say to any person they know who is experiencing some sort of imbalance of power or domestic violence situation is, I'm here for you. It doesn't matter anything else that's going on. I'm here for you. Not whoever that person is, but I'm here for you and I'm always going to be here for you. And so reminding them that no matter what decision they make about how to address this particular situation, you're still going to be there for them. You know, you don't have to add all the extra filler words at the end, like, I am here for you, even though blah, blah, blah. Or no matter what God has to say, you don't have to add any of that. You can put a period at the end of it. I support you. I'm here for you, period. Always. That's the only other word I would suggest adding. You know, I mean, I've had people close to me go through domestic violence situations, and the fear that I would judge them, even when I literally everything I do, I try to make it non-judgmental and inclusive. Just that fear, it's so hard to overcome. You know, it's partially from the person abusing you, but just reminding them that no matter what happens this time, the next time, anytime, I'm here for you. You know, that's all that matters.
And I think when you come forward and you're honest and transparent, that's when you get the best help. That's when
Mm.
we can provide the best resources that match you, and that it helps. And for family, I always tell them, and I like what you just said, add a period on it. Don't add the extra stuff. But how can I help you? What do you need from me? You
Hmm.
know, I support
Ask the
you.
questions. Hmm.
That's it. That's all people really need from you, because it's a very difficult place to be in. You know,
Hmm.
I've heard people say that I had a gay guy that said that his family told him, well, you probably was going to be raped anyway because of the lifestyle that you lead. And that was it. Almost like it was his fault because he was
Hmm.
a male. which I don't think that that's fair. It's, I support you. What do you need from me? How can I help you? So that people
Mhm.
can heal and don't have to deal with the extra stuff that family and friends are doing to them, or even coworkers. Same
Mm.
thing happens at work as well.
Yeah, and even if you as a support person are not in a place to do anything more than listen, you can say that too. Because if you're not prepared to be a safe space or take somebody somewhere or give somebody something, that's fine. But just say that. Say, hey, I'm here to listen. Anything that you want to tell me, no judgment. I'm here to listen. If I don't understand, I'll ask. You just have to be really upfront and honest with the person about what your capabilities are. Well, I'm still learning and I want to hear more because I'm interested in learning more about how I can help or how I can support you. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be an expert, but you do need to be honest about where you are and what you're going through and how you want to show up.
To me, that's the first step in healing. It really
Mhm.
is being honest, transparent, how you want to show up, admitting that this is going on, this is happening in my life, so that you can start working on it. And it's a lot of work. It's a
Mhm.
lot of work.
And even as a support person, you can say the same thing in response. Hey, I hear you. This is new to me, and I want to support you. Even if you don't know how, you don't know what this person might need, just saying, I want to be supportive. What can I do? I'm confused. I don't know. I didn't know anything like this existed. Just asking the questions. Y'all figure it out together, as long as it equals safety at the end of the day.
Do you believe when family and friends ask questions that it could be offensive? How
Oh,
do you
yes.
feel about that? Because when you don't know and you want to know, how do a person navigate that conversation with someone?
Yeah, the best way I know how to recommend people navigate that is by leaving all your preconceived notions at the door. Ask open-ended questions because as you try to guide the conversation and you're contextualizing, right? You're trying to make it make sense with what you already know. What you already know may be so far from the mark, it ends up causing the person to feel more isolated or marginalized. And so leave all that out. And asking questions like, can you even have a domestic violence situation? There's so much judgment loaded into a statement like that. It makes it hard for someone to be honest with you. And people who identify as LGBTQIA plus, any of us, I enjoy educating people about it, but nobody else should have to, especially when they're in a moment of vulnerability or difficulty with their safety. They shouldn't have to educate you. You can look it up. Google is the best. But asking open-ended questions, what's going on? Talk to me. I'd love to hear more. Wow, tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? How are you feeling now? What do you think might help? There's no judgment in any of those statements, you know. And if you need help understanding, if there's some terminology you don't understand, tell me more about that. I don't think I've heard that before. What exactly does that mean? And then fix your face. Don't be like, oh, wow, oh, you have to
It's your
temper
thing.
all that. So that, because your body language reads too, and people don't want to feel like you're shocked by how they acted or what they're doing. They just want help and support, even validation. So fix all of that.
I like that, Kelly. I think that's important for us to kind of understand how to navigate the conversations, and not be fearful of having the conversations. Because sometimes you don't know what to say. You don't want to offend anybody, but you got a question. But I agree with you. The question should not be asked when the person is experiencing trauma. While they're going through their stuff, that's not the time for you to be informed and educated. I like
Mhm.
that. I really like that a lot. That's not the time. It's a different conversation. And sometimes people try to combine it. Like now I ask a lot of questions and I always say, look, I'm asking you this question out of love because I just be needing to know how I could best help you, not to be nosy, but I want to know how I can help you. And so when you answer, when you're more transparent, I could give you the best resources that's possible for you to pick which one works for you. But when you don't come and tell enough so that I can get enough information to help you, it's a little bit difficult. But I'm real focused right now on family and friends and coworkers and for them to be supportive through this process because it's very difficult for someone to heal and you don't have the right support system around them.
Right. That's so true. And I know that when you ask questions like that, you genuinely are wanting to know because you have the resources, the more I get from you, the more I know where to direct you. But everybody is not coming from that place of genuine interest. That's not the time to be nosy. And people do that, especially with something they've not heard before. There's a curiosity.
Kelly, I caught myself being nosy. I had to apologize, right? So this guy, the trans guy, and we were at a conference, and he was showing us that he performs on like cruises, right? And he had like this banging body on the pictures. His breast was like perfect, everything, right? And I'm looking at him like, this not you, like, so I said, how did you get those breasts? Because mine don't sit up like that. And he paused for a minute. And so he said, he explained to me that it was a breastplate and everything. And I was like, and I said, I am so sorry. He was like, for what? I said, my question to you was very intrusive. You wouldn't have asked me that. And if you did, I would have been offended. So I had to apologize. Of course, he said, oh, girl, that's nothing. That don't bother me. That happens all the time. But I apologized because I felt like I was in his personal space and just being nosy. Like there was no added value. It wasn't like I was going to go buy the breastplate. It's not like where you get your shoes from because I'm going to go buy your shoes. So I apologize. And I said I have to watch that because I have questions and I'll just ask you.
And I do want to make sure that I understand what you're talking about. So this was a person who identifies as male or female?
So he's a male and he's a cross-dresser. So he doesn't identify as trans. He's a
very different.
And he loves that, right? Yeah. So he dresses up in these elaborate, beautiful costumes, right?
Yes.
And so
that's a female impersonator. That's not his identity, right?
So he's a gay male. He's a male, and he's a cross-dresser, and he identifies as gay.
Okay. Yeah. So that I was like, wait, you said trans male. I'm confused. So that makes
where all my mind was. Yeah. I had all these judgments, like you just said, don't come with the prejudgments. So I had all that there in that whole conversation, not asking him, how does he identify? How do you, what's your sexual orientation? I didn't ask all like the right, proper questions. I was all in his outfit,
So, and some people, and it sounds like you all had the type of relationship where he was fine with that. You seem to know his pronouns and it was a costume for him.
I was at a conference. We weren't friends. It was intrusive, and I was wrong. Oh no. I wasn't his girlfriend, I'm not your girl. It was wrong. And I apologize, but you're right. We bring all these in because I'm thinking, okay, now you transgender. I got all these questions and thoughts and formula, but instead of just asking him, his personal preference and just, I handle it wrong, but I'm learning. And I think that it's important for other people to ask, and it's the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah, that consciousness, when you even realize like, wow, that was really intrusive, just that moment of clarity. Because think, years ago, would you have even thought that? You probably would have just been like, I want to know, I'm asking, So now to have that moment of clarity where you recognize, well, this might have been something that was inappropriate or just too detailed for somebody I don't know. That's a step for awareness. That's a step to help people understand. And as you share that story, it helps other people, and they might just say, "Well, what should you have said? What should you do?" But it's helpful just to raise awareness. Like, don't ask
Yeah.
all kind of deep personal things. Don't.
And we're not perfect. And I always share my stories because I do believe that they can help other people because we're not perfect. We do have to learn, and we're learning from each other. And there's just some things that you don't know. Lesson learned for me, though. I won't do it again.
I've made that mistake.
I made that mistake. Yeah, I had got all excited and everything. So lesson learned from that. Linda wanted to know if someone could come and talk to her organization about the LGBTQIA plus community and how about trauma and how it impacts people. I will connect you, Kelly, with her. Also, Linda, you can also email Kelly to talk to her about it as well.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I love to do. Before I think I did just straight up LGBT 101 sessions where any question you had, anything you want to know, terminology, you ask those uncomfortable, weird questions that you should not be asking any person who identifies that way. You can ask me. I can give a textbook definition. I can give my personal opinion based on what I've seen and what I've been through. And then I give you best practices. Because even if I can tell you an anecdote about something I've dealt with, doesn't mean that you need to say certain things.
Right.
The safest thing, the most inclusive thing, if your feeling is, you know what, I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable or say something inappropriate, I got you. That's what I can help you with, just to guide you. And again, Google anything else that you were wondering because it probably wasn't appropriate.
I Google. I
Yes.
Google. Yeah, and I don't even give out definitions anymore when we're doing training because it changes so often. You have to get out there and just do the research and just look the word up so that you can get your own understanding as well. I think that's important too.
And each person has their own, so I identify as queer, but I will tell you, every person I know that identifies as queer has a different meaning they attach to that. It's a word that can be so flexible and so all encompassing, but everybody has a different thought or opinion about what it means. So I love that about that. How powerful is a word that each person can own it and feel good about it? So there's so much out there, so much.
I like that a lot. I love words. I've always loved words, but you just gave me a different meaning of words tonight. So thank you for that. We are coming to a close. It's always a pleasure to get through this so fast when you're enjoying it. It's like we're almost done. Can you tell individuals how to contact you and also to give any last words that you have?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and even LinkedIn now, Inspired Inclusivity Consulting at both Instagram and Facebook. But you can reach me directly at my email address. It's my initials, KDP, at inspiredinclusivityconsulting.com. And my website, inspiredinclusivityconsulting.com, you'll find some of the initiatives that I do and a few details about my approach. But if your goal is to really be open and really be welcoming, but you're not sure how to get there, whether that involves learning about the LGBTQ community or neurodivergence, because I also love to teach about mental health and about different types of unseen diversity. Oh, I love that. It's one of my passions too. And they overlap at times. So I love to talk about things like that so that you're not limiting your business or limiting yourself because of your preconceived notions about things. I love to talk about all those different things. So contact me. My email address, any of my social media pages, DM, whatever the things are that people are doing, and just request a call. I'm happy to have a conversation. I do free consultations so that I can help you understand kind of what it is you might need, what you're looking for, and we can take steps towards getting you there. Whether it's just for your own personal knowledge or if it's so that you can really impact your business or your community. So I have a lot of different options because I just want to meet people where they are.
I love it. I love it. I think that's important that the option is there
Mm.
because we really do need to focus on inclusivity.
Mm.
I was looking at the name of your business and I said, this really does speak volumes of the woman that you are and the
Mm.
mission that you have. I think that's so important. So reach out to her, contact her. LinkedIn, I know they really should be contacting you to have you come out to their organization, talk about it, and be able to answer a lot of questions that individuals have. I also want to say if you are a survivor, if you're going through some things, for us here at Hush No More, it does not matter what your gender identity is. It does not matter about your sexual orientation. It does not matter about your gender expression. We love you for you. Come get the support that you need. Free counseling is available. We are here just to support through this whole entire journey, and you're not in it alone. So that was the importance of this show today to make sure that you know that we're here for you.
So glad y'all are here.
All right, so we had a great show. I think it's so important. Thank you so very much for coming. Attorney Kelly Durden Posey. I love that. You are an attorney. You're beautiful. You're smart. And you just love to just help people. And that means a lot to me. This week, we have a lot of events that's coming up. So, the 29th, The Glass Soldier, talk about military sexual trauma with Deandra Cole. I'm so excited to have that conversation because, as many of you know, I'm a survivor of MST. So, having the conversation with the organization who is doing something about it is going to be priceless next week. On the 9th of July, we are doing Hush No More Rock Your Truth Poetry Nights. If you would like to sign up for open mic, please contact us. It's also on Eventbrite. If you want to register to be a featured poet, we would love to have you. We are also working on the Hush No More poetry book. If you are a poet, we would love for you to submit your writings to be published in the book free of charge to help us raise awareness about the hush topics and the different things that people go through. If you are healing through journaling and writing, please share that with us because we think that it's important to be able to help other people and have other people understand this journey as well. So thank you all for joining us. It is truly an honor to be here with you. If you need us, our website is hushnomore.org. Our number is 1-888-285-2161. You can reach us on all the social media platforms. Reach out to us. Let people know that we are here, that we support them, and that we provide free counseling. And we also do art therapy on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So join us for many events throughout the month and check us out online. Peace and blessings to you all. Thank you once again, Kelly, for joining us. And I hope that you share this so that people can understand just a little bit of what individuals who identify as LGBTQIA plus community experience and let them know that we're here. So thank you. Thank you, Catherine. She said it was a good discussion.
Great.